Okay, today we're going to be looking at solving radical equations. So we have done a variety of things with radicals. We've graphed them, we've simplified their expressions, and now we're going to solve the equations. So first we need to remember our inverse operations. So when we say inverse operations, what are the operations that undo each other? So we have add, subtract, multiply, divide, square, and square root. Okay, so those are the operations we're going to be looking at when we're trying to solve equations. So we're going to be undoing the square roots by squaring them. Okay, there's a couple of things. The first key rule is the radical must be alone before you apply the inverse operation, which in this case is squaring it. So an example of that would be if I have 4 equals the square root of x, then I'm ready to go. I can square both sides because the radical was by itself. However, if I have, see that's good, if I have 4 equals the square root of x, and then I have on the outside plus 2, I can't square that yet. I would have to move the 2 before I square it. So in this case, this would not be good. This would not how it worked. Okay, one other thing that you're going to have to be watching for is extraneous solutions, meaning we're going to have to check our answer every time. Because sometimes you're going to get an answer, but that, if you plugged it back in for x, it won't actually work. And it has to do with taking the square root, which can't be negative. And so you're going to end up sometimes with solutions that don't work. So we're going to have to watch for those and be careful and check every single answer. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of examples together, and then you're going to try some on your own and watch the answers being done for you. So here's the first one. Our first goal here would be to get the radical by itself. Oh, just a second. Okay, so we have 2 square root of x plus 1 equals 14. Okay, now in order to get the radical by itself, I need to divide both sides by 2. So when I do that, I get the square root of x plus 1 equals 7. So because the x plus 1 is all underneath the square root, I have gotten the square root by itself. So now, to undo a square root, I'm going to square it. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do the other side. So because I squared the left, I also have to square the right. So I get x plus 1 equals 49. Then just solve for x. So subtract 1 from both sides, and I have x equals 48. So before I can be sure that that's my answer, I need to plug it in and see if it works. So when I plug 48 in for x, I get 2 times the square root of 49, and the square root of 49 is 7, so 2 times 7 is 14. So this solution worked, so I know this is in fact the answer. Okay, so now I want you to pause the video, and then I want you to try the next one by yourself, and then turn it on and watch this. And see the solution done for you, and then we'll do that as we go throughout several more of these examples. So pause right now, and then when you turn it back on, the solution will just appear for the next question. Okay, so now you can see this next problem being done. So you might want to pause it again and kind of go through the steps and see if you got it correct and if you checked it correctly and how you did. Okay, so now let's look at example 3. For this example, the radical is already isolated, so there is nothing we need to do in this first step because the radical is already by itself. So when we go to square both sides, I have the square root of x plus 18 equals x minus 2. So when I square both sides, on the right, I'm going to be squaring a binomial. So I'm going to end up with x, sorry, not this. I think I quit recording somewhere, so I'm going to pick back up right here, and it might be the same thing twice, but at least you'll get to hear it 2 times. So right here, I was doing the square root of x plus 18 equals x minus 2, and I have to square both sides. So when I do that, I end up squaring a binomial, x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I need to figure out what that is. So remember, I write it 2 times, and then how many times am I going to multiply? 4 times. So x squared minus 2x plus 4. Okay, so when I do that, I get the x squared minus 4x minus 4. So I'm going to move those both over to the other side, and I end up with a quadratic. Now remember, there are a variety of ways to solve a quadratic. Name 2 of them. What are 2 ways you can solve a quadratic? Okay, if you said graphing, if you said quadratic formula, if you said factoring, if you said completing the square, all of those would work. This is one that's very easy to factor, so I'm going to go ahead and factor it, and I'm going to get x minus 7 and x plus 2, which means that x is 7 or x is negative 2. Now, remember, I have to try both answer choices to see which one is correct, or if both of them are correct. So the square root of 7 plus 18, and I need to see if that equals 7 minus 2. Well, this is the square root of 25, and that is 5 equals 5. So that is correct. So I know that this one is correct. So now I'm going to try the other one. The square root of 2 plus 18, does that equal, or I'm sorry, negative 2, does that equal 5, negative 2 minus 2. Okay, so this would be the square root of 16. Does that equal negative 4? Well, the square root of 16 is plus or minus 4, but the principal root is 4. So does 4 equal negative 4? No. So in this case, this would be the only solution. Okay, so we're going to do what we did last time. Pause. You try the next one. It's going to follow the same format. You try it and then turn it back on to see how it went. Okay, so here is the answer to the last problem for this set of examples. So please look over this one. Like I said, you might want to pause and check your work and see if you got the correct answer or where you made a mistake or where you have a question to ask tomorrow for class. Okay, there is another set of examples. There's 4 more examples, and these are very similar to the ones before, but in this case, instead of squaring both sides, you're going to cube both sides. So I'm just going to do a couple because the video is getting kind of long, and then we will do the rest of these as our warm-ups tomorrow in class, or right after our warm-ups in class. And we'll do a few together. So you need to watch the video up to this point, and then we'll do a couple together in class. So I'm going to do this first one, and then we'll look at the rest of these in class tomorrow. So I still need to get the radical by itself. So in this case, I need to add 20 to both sides. So I have 5 times the cube root of x plus 2 equals 20. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 5. So I get rid of that coefficient. So I have the cube root of x plus 2 equals 4. Now, instead of squaring both sides, I'm going to cube both sides. So I have x plus 2 equals 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. Subtract 2, so I have x equals 62. So to check this, I'm going to plug 62 in. So 5 times the cube root of 62 plus 2 minus 20. See if that equals a 0. So this is 5 times the cube root of 64, which is 4. So 5 times 4 minus 20 is 0. That's 20 minus 20, which is 0. So I know that this is correct, and this is the right answer. So you might try a couple of these other problems. We will for sure look at them at the beginning of class tomorrow. I hope you've had a great weekend, and I will see you all soon.